Welcome to the DevReady podcast. Today we have Anthony and Tim Walmsley that's joined us today. Thanks for coming in, Tim.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
No
cheers,
problems.
Tim. The reason why we got Tim in, we're actually connected on LinkedIn, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, had a bit of a chat. I read one of your articles about being one of Australia's fastest startups at the moment. So tell us a little bit about that.
Or being fastest start, it comes out of
Yeah.
nowhere, right? When you get these things, it was just
Yeah.
someone tagged us online and we were like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
amazing. But
Yeah.
no, it's a really exciting time. We were named in that list alongside companies like Canva and everything
Yeah,
else.
it's huge.
We look up to these companies as like
Yeah.
where we want to be, and
Yeah.
then to be in that same list was it was a good start to the day.
Yeah, I imagine it would have been that morning.
Yeah.
So Tim is from a company called BenchOn. Tell us a bit about BenchOn and what you actually do.
Yeah, so BenchOn is the world's first business talent sharing platform. So what we do is we allow businesses to earn revenue by loaning out their underutilized staff or their staff who are sitting on the bench.
Okay.
So when they're not using them, rather than letting them go, they loan them out via contract to other businesses that need specialist or surge support.
Yep.
So in that way, businesses manage the peaks and troughs of the business cycle with paid contracts for their staff in the troughs when there's not enough work on, and then in the peaks when they need support or they need surge support, they can find the highest quality people hidden inside other businesses at cheaper rates.
Yeah.
Rather than just going to a business and saying, I need you to do this project, which is sort of top rates.
So it's-
This is more like, I've got a spare person and you can have them for this reduced rate.
So it's just sharing resources. That business doesn't have anything to do with what that person does at that other contract.
So it's based on their skill sets and their specialties, but there's two parts here. There's skills underutilization and then there's productivity underutilization,
Yep.
right? So any one of you we'd have multiple skill sets. We were talking before, you're a
Yep.
project manager, you've got tech background, you do a bit of marketing.
Yep.
All of those skills, not many people would hire you for all of them in one.
No, no
right?
one would.
You're either going to get a marketing job or you're going to get a
Yes.
project management job or you're going to get a tech job.
Yep.
But on my platform, your profile will be listed based on all of your skill sets.
Okay.
So even though you're a tech company, a marketing job might come up and you might be on the bench, so you can go for that. Or a project management job might come up and you'd still get matched to that because it looks at your whole skill set. So
Okay.
therefore, businesses can maximize the use of their employees with their whole range of skill sets.
Yep.
And we've seen plenty of case studies where that's worked really, really well. And then the underutilization part is, all right, well, you've got a project just finishing, you've got nothing starting for 3 weeks. Do you continue to pay salaries for that person and just have them sitting there doing admin? Or
Yeah.
do you go, hey, it's too expensive, I've got to let you go. I've got nothing for you.
Yep.
And that's sort of where it started. I saw so many good people who were highly competent and loyal. They were losing their jobs because the businesses were like, I just can't afford to keep you during this gap, you know? And then at the same time, if a business goes, I want to keep my staff, I want to grow my capability, they sit there and they continue to pay salaries out, chewing up their cash flow, and it puts the business in financial risk. And I saw so many businesses who ended up shutting down because they had 15 people on a project. That project ended earlier than they thought. They had nothing for them. They tried to keep them on and ended up running through all their cash and closing.
So that's not a position anyone wants to be in, right? So
Right.
finding that balance is massively important.
Yeah, it was a lose-lose-lose situation,
Yeah.
and I've always been someone who tries to look for a win-win in everything we do, and that's exactly what BenchOn does. It's a win for the company with someone on the bench, and it's a win for the company who needs a specialist support, and then it's a win for the economy because it's strengthening our businesses and giving Australians job stability, and so they can spend more money and grow the economy.
Yeah, it's an awesome concept. Is there anyone out there doing this? I've never heard of this before.
No,
Yeah,
actually.
very
So
unique.
when I started BenchOn, I did a whole lot of market research, and there was nothing worldwide doing this. There are a lot of platforms out there where you can win work. It's more like a tender proposal system.
Yep.
But that takes a lot of time, takes a lot
Does,
of effort.
yeah.
Whereas this system just goes, hey, look, I need a project manager for 3 weeks. These are the skill sets I need. And then I go, okay, well, here are 5 companies that have that exact person
Yes.
that has those skill sets, has the availability. This is their rate. Are you happy with it? Good. So there's no proposals. It's all automated. And we're sort of maximising, the productivity of Australian
So
companies.
just in hearing about how it all works, in my head, something similar that probably doesn't look at it at the surface is Amazon and AWS.
Right.
If you're familiar with them. So they started their whole cloud platform by selling underutilized servers at night time.
Right, yeah.
So it's a similar concept. Concept-wise, it's similar to that, and that's grown into the biggest cloud provider now
Exactly.
across the world. So using the similar concept.
And that's why, well, we say, in this day and age, the sharing economy is so powerful and what it can achieve. If you need extra money, you don't have to cut your spending. You can go and use your underutilized car to drive for Uber, or you put your underutilized bedroom on Airbnb.
There's a lot of opportunity out there now, isn't there?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So now what we've done is create a platform where businesses can use their underutilized asset, which is their employees, to earn money when they need it.
It's an awesome concept, awesome idea, and I understand why you actually get some good traction out there in the marketplace. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
thanks.
Let's step back 3 steps, Tim. So tell us a bit about your background and how you first, what have you done in the past, and what brought you into this sort of business, and how did you get involved in it, really?
Yeah, I don't normally have the normal path of an entrepreneur. I'm actually a retired Army major, so I did 14 years in the military. I fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. I had an amazing career, and then my back was injured after I got back from Afghanistan, and even though I was going into command, which is what I'd strived for my whole life, because of my back, I wasn't able to take that command position, so they put me into a desk job. So I did a couple of master's degrees and moved into defence project management. So I was managing a $2 billion program to replace all the missile systems in Army.
Okay. Wow.
And during that time, so I not only learned how government works in terms of their contracting and how they engage with industry, but I also got a massive network in industry. When you're running a $2 billion program,
everyone.
every man and their dog wants to know you and take you for coffee. I had more coffees that year than ever before. But what it meant was that when I jumped out of defence, I had a real big network to go and get a good job. So I landed an amazing job with a US aerospace engineering firm as their director of strategy and business development.
Yeah, nice.
And so my job was to grow their business here in Australia. It was amazing, amazing small business run by some two great people, and they gave me full sort of, I guess, leeway here in Australia. I worked from the Gold Coast, I travelled when I needed to, and I came up with a strategy and just implemented it.
Okay.
And that's when, during that time, that's when I started to see this problem in industry with, the peaks and troughs.
Yep, get it.
And so when I talked to, my mentor at the time, I was like, how is it possible that all these people are losing their jobs and businesses are shutting down? And he went, well, it's peaks and troughs, mate. We hope to survive long enough through the troughs to get back to the peaks. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. It's just the way business is, get used to it.
Interesting.
And I went, so in my military career, we have this thing called a red flag. And it's because soldiers all the time try to pull the wool over your eyes, because they want to do something easier or, whatever. And so as soon as someone says, oh, that's just the way it is, or that's the way we've always done it, or, it's an immediate red flag, because they either don't know why they're doing something, which is dangerous.
Yes.
Or 2, they're actually trying to take the easy way out and they're trying to pull the wool over your eyes. So either way, you investigate to try and, is this the right process and is this the best way of doing it? So as soon as my mentor said, that's just the way it is, mate, get used to it, I went, it's a red flag, So I went and sort of, started researching the problem and talking to companies, and then sort of had the light bulb moment for BenchOn.
Interesting. Your mentor, let's dive a little bit in. Can you share a little about who your mentor was at the time and still is maybe? And how it came about?
Well, he is actually my chairman now on the board.
Yes.
He's actually, I know him through family, extended family. And we found that, he sits on the board, boards of ASX listed companies. He's at the top of his game. When we were at sort of events and parties and things, everyone else would be drinking and laughing, and we'd be over in the corner discussing business plans and what do I do here and how do I set this up, and it was just just things we enjoyed, and we sort of bonded that way. And when I went home after I had this sort of idea for BenchOn, I wrote a business plan out, and I drove it to him that night. We went and had a drink at a pub, and I sort of showed him, and he was just like, this
solves
works,
the problem.
Of course, this works. This is great. I'll back you.
Well,
so he was going to be my first investor.
Okay.
So I'm trained as a systems engineer. So when I had the idea, I sort of did all the wireframing for what I wanted the platform to do, and I planned it all out. And we went and took it to an IT firm and said, how much to build this? And they said, it's $1 million. Yeah. And I could see the color draining out of Pat's face when they said it's $1 million. And you could see he's just like, I'm not giving you $1 million, mate. I was willing to chuck in 50 grand, but I'm not giving you $1 million, so you're on your own.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we didn't think it was going to work then. But basically, yeah, Pat, my mentor, he's been there from the very first second that I had the idea, and he's been my chairman ever since. So he's sort of my big supporter.
Yeah, no, that's important. I think we all need mentors in our life, and that's somebody you can reach out to, ask questions of, and having that caliber of experience is a great person to obviously share some information about and run ideas through. So yeah, awesome to have that experience on your side, really. So it's good.
So,
Yeah.
So when you jumped over to that IT team and they gave you that number, was that going in blindly without knowing anything about software and what sort of things cost?
Nothing,
yes.
Right? And now that I know, what I did is I wireframed the gold standard of what I wanted, you know, and then I learned over time about the lean approach and doing minimum viable products and test and adjust and, you know, always going back to your clients. And now I look back at what I did then, I was like, oh my God, I was so naive.
Yes.
You know, no wonder they were going to say it's $1 million.
Yeah, that's the polished version of everything, your wish list ideally.
Right. Yeah. And I think back now and go, geez, I'm so lucky I didn't have someone who was like, oh, I'll just give you $2 million to get this started. Because I would have spent $1 million on a platform that would have looked nothing like the platform I have now.
Well, there you go.
And, you know, I would have had to rebuild and you know, I'm really lucky that I didn't have any money.
It's an advantage sometimes.
Take a different approach.
We've met people that have thrown $200,000 at things that just go nowhere, and it's pretty crazy in terms of the money they invest out of their own pocket. So yeah, lucky you obviously didn't get that early investment. So after that, so you got this expectation, $1 million. What did you do? What did you do next?
I went home and I was sitting there thinking, oh, this is never going to happen. Like, how am I going to convince someone to give me $1 million? Like, I was an army officer. Like, I was like, how do you convince someone? Like, to me, that was an enormous amount of money. And I was like, what am I just going down the shops and go, anyone got a spare bill? You know, like, so I was thinking that this dream was dead and it wasn't going to happen. But, you know, when you latch onto an idea and you just know, like, in your bones that this is the idea, right? Like, I couldn't let it go. So I was like, okay, I've got to find a way.
Yes.
And then I was researching on LinkedIn and I found Sebastian Eckersley-Mazelin, who's the CEO of Blue Chili. Mm-hmm. He's actually ex-military, so him and I had something in common.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I just reached out to him because Blue Chili supported non-tech founders to get their platforms off the ground. So I just connected with him on LinkedIn and said, hey, I'm a military officer, or was a military officer as well. You know, I've been following you guys. I want to meet. I've got an idea.
Yep.
So he gave me a lunch meeting and I pitched him and he went, I love it. I'm going to put you to my sort of head of startups. You've got to convince him to get into the program. So I did that. Then I had to pitch so I had to do their startup boot camp, which is basically, you know, the first steps in validating the idea, you know, with customers and everything else. So I did that. I got 15 customers that had all signed papers saying, yeah, we'll be your first customers, you know, we'll pay you, blah, blah, blah. And then I pitched their sort of international investment board, and then Blue Chili then accepted me into their 156 program.
Yeah, nice.
So what I liked about it was, especially coming from the military, it's like a bouncing ball plan from how to set up and grow a business. You know, even like the first step is like, what's the name of your business?
Yep.
You know? And then the next step is register that name. Yes. You know, like, and it just, all I had to do was follow each simple step.
Okay.
And I knew that the business was going to be set up well.
Yeah,
you know?
good.
So they were the ones that got me off the ground.
So really you only pitched to Blue Chili, nobody else beyond that?
No, I was talking to others, but it just seemed like Blue Chili was just too good a fit.
Yeah, okay.
So because they were like, we'll build the tech for you, we'll help you understand tech, we'll help you raise money. It was everything that I needed.
Okay.
And I trusted Seb because he was ex-military.
Yeah, that helps. Yeah,
because
that rapport, right? Yeah, awesome. Yeah. So tell us a bit about that model itself. How long was the program for? What did it look like? Are you still involved in any way with them?
Yeah.
Other than investment, obviously. But how did it all play out? Just so everyone knows what Blue Chili is all about a little bit.
Sure. So it wasn't like it is now. So in the startup sector, what they do now is they have these sort of like cohort system where they go, okay. We're getting all startups who are in the disability sector, and we've got this accelerator for you, and we've got these corporate partners, and we're going to help you with introductions, everything else. Back when I was there, it was like the Wild West of startups, which was just like, you're on your own, set it up, and good luck.
Okay.
But they were there as constant support. They were my, advisors, and they gave me all the templates and everything that I needed. There was no time limit on the process. It was just like, you're in now, just grow your business.
Mm-hmm.
So Seb and I, you sort of maintained a very good relationship where I could just call him and ask questions. His head of investment, Luther, was also there anytime I needed to ask questions about investors. It was like having a team behind me that I didn't pay.
Yes.
You know, they had equity in the company, but I didn't pay them, but they were always there to lean on.
Yeah,
and you know, when you're starting out as a first-time entrepreneur, the biggest part there is feeling like you're not out there on your own. And
It's the overwhelm, right? It's
Right.
not knowing what you don't know and walking into something. You obviously had an idea, but how do you build the tech? What do you do?
Right.
Speak
You
to
don't know what you don't know, right?
You don't know. It's challenging. I think even being non-tech now, we had a conversation a little bit earlier about how do you know what your tech's doing? Are they doing the right job? It's challenging, right? You don't know.
Exactly.
Having a non-tech experience, so having a team behind you is massively important at that stage.
And it really made sense to me too, having an accelerator that had equity in my company being the same one building my tech. So they built it. They built it at cost price. So I still had to pay for it, but it was cost price, so it didn't cost me a whole bunch.
Okay.
But when I looked at it, it was like, well, because they have equity, they want whatever they're building to work and to be the best it could possibly be. And because it's a cost price, they're not going to try and rush through that.
Yes,
you know,
correct.
it just means that they were incentivized not to take shortcuts.
Yep.
You know, they're incentivized to make it work, but also do it on a schedule. That, and so that's why I went with them over a sort of a firm model. And yeah, it worked really, really well. And unfortunately, Blue Chili has now sort of stopped their early startup support.
Yep.
They've moved to Singapore, I think, is their focus.
Yeah, I think there's a lot in Australia that's shifting and changing. I don't know how successful some of these have been, and these ventures
they
have
run
been.
more like incubators,
Yeah,
things like
that's-
that. And then
yeah.
it's like
Yep.
a pitch competition. They'll
Yeah.
get 300 people pitching, push them through stages, then accept a handful of them.
Yeah, well, now I think Blue Chili's moved to sort of supporting scale-ups and,
Yeah.
and putting them through corporate programs, which is obviously a better business model for them.
It's a safer investment, right? So
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
the conversion rate from startups to unicorns isn't very high
No.
in
Right.
Australia. So I think that's
Yeah.
what probably prompted the shift.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, but they're still good. Like I still talk to Seb. You know, it's still I still have all the relationships I had originally.
Okay.
But yeah, without them, I would never be where I am right now.
Yeah, you get
it
it.
would still be an idea
Yeah.
that I had.
And so you basically had to run it at cost price. What did you invest into the first product?
So we did, well, firstly, my wife and I sold our house and put all that into the business.
Wow.
You know,
Okay.
so that kept us going for the first 2 years.
Yep.
We did a pre-seed investment round of about $130,000 from people we knew. And that was enough to get the basic platform built,
Yes.
to fund my sort of early business development activities, and get the website and the legals and all that set up.
Yes.
And it allowed me to get out there with a very, very, very basic product, and start earning revenue from clients.
Okay.
Yep.
And what was interesting was I originally tried to do the proper lean approach. So I went, okay, well, engineering has this problem the most. We're going to start in engineering in defense industry in Canberra. And we'll build the market there. And once it's working, we'll then expand out.
Yep.
So vertical by vertical. So I signed up the 15 engineering companies. And then when I said, okay, well, the platform's ready to go, you can put your jobs in and we'll match you. And we were still doing everything manual. Like the platform was a shop front, basically.
Oh, so
And-
just a
and
data entry point.
behind the scenes, we were like, you know,
Smoke and mirrors.
duck's legs underwater, like, where are we going to find these people? So anyway, so they started putting jobs on, but they were asking for project managers and logisticians and IT developers. And I went, guys, and I rang them all up and I was like, guys, this is a place for you to find engineering resources or to get your engineering resources off the bench. And they went, well, we're an engineering company. I don't need engineers. I need the skill sets that I don't have.
Yeah,
you know?
okay.
And I was like,
Light bulb.
so the customer's driving me in a different. So I then had to make the decision to go horizontal across all verticals at once,
Yeah, that would've
rather
been
than
more
vertical
challenging.
but vertical, which, as you know, is like the most impossible thing to do.
It is. Like
How do you create supply and demand for each vertical simultaneously?
Yes.
But it's not just each vertical; it's skill sets, location, availability, price range.
So basically recruiting across every sector, every field imaginable.
Right, so
That's what you're
imagine
basically
like
doing.
anyone can ring up and ask for anything, and you've just got to be able to find it.
Yeah, wow.
You know,
okay.
so it was, we did a lot of running around.
I imagine
Yeah.
so, yeah.
But that's how sort of our clients drove our early plans of how we were going to attack this. And
Get it. And
Yeah.
it's a marketplace too, so you got the chicken and egg problem. You don't have the resources, but you might have the project. You don't have the projects, you don't have the resources. So it's always fighting that battle.
And there was no clear like, oh, it should be the egg first or the chicken first.
Yeah.
So when we started out, I was like, okay, if I get the supply, then I can then sell the demand, because I can say I've got this many.
That's true.
This talent. So that's how I started.
Yeah.
But then I realized that the only way to find the demand after I got the supplier signed up was to like get on Seek and work out who's asking for contracted support, and then ringing them up and going, hey, why don't you put it through my platform instead? But every single company I talked to was like, no agencies, and they'd hang up because they just thought I was a recruitment agent.
Yeah, at that point, you sound very similar.
Yeah,
right, because I was like, hey, I've got a platform that automatically... no agencies, and they'd hang up on me. And I was like, So I was very frustrated. And then I realized, well, if I had a contract, if I ring a business and say, hey, I've got a 6-month contract for a project manager worth 75 grand. Are you interested? By the way, it's available through my platform. I just need you to sign up and create a profile. I was getting like 90% sign-up success rate.
Well, there you go.
Because you're dangling money in front of
It's
a
very
business
different,
owner.
yeah.
You know, and you're saying, hey, there's 75 grand. I don't care if you win it or not, but it's there if you want to sign up for free. And all of a sudden it changed, you know, and then, so I now know which one was first. It was, I needed the demand, and then I could bring on the supply.
Understand that. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's always an evolving business model you've been working on there. So,
always.
yeah,
and I'm learning new things every single day.
And you're working with customers to
imagine.
solve the problems, right? So every customer you deal with, you get new ideas, new concepts, then you've got to evaluate, is it needed? Sometimes you've got to build stuff just to bring on big customers. Now,
Right.
Who have you been targeting through this process? Are you targeting small, medium, large? What does it look like?
Yeah, so in the early days, I targeted small because as a startup, you don't have time to wait for the enterprise sales cycle.
Yeah, correct.
Which is like 12 months plus.
Yeah, it can be
Yep.
more.
You know,
Yeah,
we would have
12
died waiting.
Yeah.
So I focused on small business, and we signed up. We were pretty successful. So in the first 2.5 years, I think we signed up about 500 companies.
Okay.
The problem was, even though the premise of the business is built on the fact that every business has peaks and troughs, so they therefore have supply and demand depending on when they're at. But in a general term, enterprise has all the demand because they're winning all the big programs.
Yes.
Because they've got big BD teams and marketing and everything else. And the small business has all the oversupply because they don't have the ability to find contracts whenever they need them.
Correct.
So what was happening was our small business, even though the small business market, even though it was growing steadily, they were putting on speculative jobs. So tenders, you know, they hadn't won the work yet.
Oh, okay, so just throwing up a tender from someone else.
So they were going, I've been offered to bid for this work. I need 3 people, you know, and then they'd put it on my platform. And we were more than happy to support. We were like, if we can help small business win more work, great.
Yep.
But because it was speculative and it wasn't in hand, they'd put the job on, we'd match them, they'd go, yeah, okay, cool, they'd put that person forward, but then there's a tender response period, there's then like a contracting period.
Delay and a wait.
It could be 2-3 months before they actually get a contract. So firstly, available staff weren't then available when the
things
contract
changed.
So
came
they were
live.
using the same model they were doing previously, which was get people on in preparation for work.
Right.
Project doesn't come in, but then they've got resources sitting there.
Exactly. So we were exacerbating the problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make it easy to bring people on board.
Yeah. And the other problem was that there were then some small businesses who went, well, this is awesome. So they just scraped every tender platform, like Oz Tender or anything. They grabbed every single job, whether it suited their company or not, and they'd just put it onto BenchOn and go, well, if another company can give me all the people, I'll bid for it.
And make a clip off the top.
I'll just make a clip off top. And I fundamentally disagree with that business model.
Yeah, it's not a great model.
Outsourcing business.
Yeah, and so they had no probability of win. So we were doing all this work, because we were still doing things manually at that point. We were doing all this work, working 18 hours a day, and we were getting 0 revenue because no contracts came off.
Well, yeah, that's not fun.
So I was in this downward spiral of depression going, my model's not working, how am I going to fix this? And so then when I sort of took a step back and looked at it and went, well, enterprise is the missing key here. So then I did a couple of pilot programs with like a Big 4 bank and a Big 4 consulting firm and a few others, and just sort of said, what's your problems, you know? And I found that even though these companies have millions of dollars and heaps of resources, they were still managing sourcing manually with emails and phone calls and Excel spreadsheets.
Yep.
I'm like, you're a bank, for God's sake. Like, how do you not have a
some system that does this,
They've
right?
got,
and they go, well, this is, and then they go, but this is just the way we've always done it. You know?
That's
And you go,
that's what you want to hear.
well, let me fix that for you.
Their 30-year-old systems just work.
Right. So in 2018, we did a pivot and we became a software enterprise company.
Okay. All right.
And we built, let me rephrase that, enterprise software company.
Enterprise, okay.
Yeah. So that we then built products that suited the problems that our enterprise customers were having to make it more efficient and everything else. So we built that, we finished that off sort of the end of 2018, and then 2019 we started selling it. And as you know, long enterprise cycle, it took a long time.
It does take time.
It wasn't until we won the Defence Industry Startup of the Year at their big awards, which was like the Oscars. You know, like they had celebrities announcing the nominees. Everyone was in tuxes. You know, there was like it was
probably
just
the richest projects in Australia.
right. It was unbelievable. They had every big player in defence industry there, and we won it. And what the judges said about the company was just broadcast to every major player in the industry. And that night, companies that I was having trouble getting meetings with, the CEO, the global CEO, would walk over and just drop his card on the table and go, "Love what you're doing. Let's have a meeting next week."
That makes life a bit easier, doesn't it?
So from October, everything just changed. Like
and this is
all
October.
of a sudden,
What year are we talking?
I'm talking like last October.
Yeah, 19. Yeah,
right.
okay.
So it was a good 3.5 years of slogging it out, low revenue.
Yes.
You know, trying to get the right fit.
Putting the house on the line.
Everything was on the line. You know, I did a investment rounds during that time to keep us going.
Yes.
But then it all just sort of fell into place, and all, we were validated in that industry. So before Christmas, this last Christmas, we just had like enterprises closing, like bang, 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 and now we've got a pipeline that's just. I'm at the point now where I can't keep up with the pipeline that I've got. So I've gone from like 3.5 year drought to now just like
overflow,
catastrophic success. Like, how do I stop?
It's a better problem to have, isn't it?
Right. I actually love this problem. I love this problem. But that's exactly it. And we've now hit that product market fit. We know that the enterprise products are what they want. Behind that, we've got our sort of collaborative network, which connects all businesses through all enterprise products together. So that's where the true power is. You know, a business can come on like an enterprise and they can buy our products to make their processes more efficient and their sourcing more efficient. But if they bring on 1,000 companies that normally do work with them, those 1,000 companies then get added into my national network, and then they provide more supply and demand for everyone else. So it's this compounding effect.
And I imagine, depending on how big this gets, it's going to make a massive impact to resources. And if it becomes global, and if you're talking to these CEOs, it can quickly become global, right?
Right.
And like you said, the peaks and troughs. We have people we've got an office, 10 guys here, we've got some people overseas as well, but we have peaks and troughs, and we've gone through those, and then you're just trying to save money at that time and just not spend as much, and that's probably not the best way to do it, but that's what you do when you're in that sort of world, in a small business sort of world. So having that, imagine a global presence of a business like that, the amount of efficiency you'll drive. So it's pretty cool to think about how big this could be. And that's probably why I got written up, basically.
No, and that's exactly it. So we've got one client at the moment who's going to trial our system in 5 countries in Europe.
Yep, well.
And then if that works, they're going to roll us out across 123 countries.
Yeah,
you know, they're a global player.
That's bang.
You know, and once that happens, so that's happening this year. So this year is when we go global.
Huge.
We've had companies from 15 different countries register their formal interest. So as soon as you're ready to come out, you know, we're ready. But we design the enterprise products to be sold SaaS.
Yeah, okay.
You know, so we can sell them overseas. I don't need to go and set up offices and teams. I can just support from here. They use it internal, and then when they've built a sort of a ready-made market for us over there, that's when we can invest in the country and build a national network in each of those countries. And if you think then where we're going, like have a look at how fast globalization is happening and how small the world's getting. We're talking about optimizing the sharing of talent nationally. The next step is we're going to have international talent mobility. You know, where and a good example. So we're in defence industry here. There are no armament engineers here in Australia because we don't build our own. You know, well there are some, but and this company needed it. The only place we could get it was in the States.
Okay.
So we had to then cold call companies in the States and go, look, our platform's just in Australia, but we're willing to match you manually if you want this job. And we were able to do that. And,
well done.
you know, they got visas and everything and they came across. But if you have a fully automated platform with each nation having their own national network, and then each of those networks are connected to all other national networks, it doesn't matter what skill set you need, when you need it, it could be a purple unicorn that sprouts rainbows out of its head. Someone somewhere
Has
in
it.
some
Has
country
that.
will have it.
Yes. Yeah,
you know?
get it.
Yeah.
That's really,
The
really
only
cool.
thing at that point you have to worry about is a language barrier, and there's probably not even that much of a problem because
Right.
there's people in different countries who speak languages of their mother country or wherever it may be, so that can fit it anyway.
Yeah, and also, I have faith in technology. I have faith that by the time we're at a point where I have to have multi-currency, multi-language, and connect the two together on on a level playing field, that my tech platform will be advanced enough to be able to handle that.
Yeah.
We can always build to fix future problems. So as long as I've got the right people in the team, we'll be able to handle all the problems that come up in the future. But still, it's exciting at the possibility of what could happen.
What's the big vision for you? Where are you planning to be? What are your goals? What are your objectives?
So, I mean, if you look at it, so our mission is to give Australians job stability,
Okay.
and because I actually think that that's the basis for economic growth. I know the casualisation of the workforce has come in and flexibility and with the new generations coming through, that's important to them. But I think as a society, we've made the mistake of thinking that flexibility and all of that is the most important. But what's most important is that we have a strong business base, that have strong employees who are trained to the best of their ability, and that Australians have work whenever they need it. If you look at the underemployment figures, the underemployment's actually rising even though employment's dropping or unemployment's dropping. So that is a symptom of a bigger problem, and so that's ultimately my social impact goal is to do that. But if we look at where do I want to take the company, we're very, very close to having almost 100% ownership of defence industry, which is coming this year.
Yeah, that's massive.
Which gives us a very big competitive advantage.
Yeah, it does.
And defence industry is one of the hardest industries to break into. So if we can do it in the hardest industry possible and break that and own it, then we naturally then will filter into all others. But
they reach a majority of other industries anyway.
Right, exactly. It's like a hub and
other
spoke,
needs.
A wheel, spokes, and defence is in the centre because defence uses every other industry. Telecommunications, rail, construction, it's all there. It's a natural starting point, which is what we're going through.
What's your cheeky question? What's your relationship with recruiters?
Actually, okay, so this is an interesting story. So when I first started this, I was like, I wonder how the recruitment industry is going to take us. Because the recruitment industry is humongous.
Yeah, it's a massive industry.
There's like 12,000 recruiting companies here in Australia. So I was worried, but what actually happened in practice was recruiters are using my platform to get their job seekers out on more contingent contracts, while they wait to find their career of choice.
Okay, so they're actually utilising it as well.
So they're utilising it to win more contracts for their people, while their recruiters can focus on finding them the best long-term career.
Okay, get it.
And that's...
So they're registering as a business with spare resources.
Yeah.
Pretty much,
Right. Because if you think about it, it's a loophole because we're purely business to business. We don't deal with individuals. You have to have an ABN. You have to be a legitimate trading business in Australia. We vet each company. But if you think about it, a recruitment company has people.
Yes. Direct access.
And they have access to people who want work. Now, even though that recruitment company will put them forward under their banner and say, we're representing this person, so there is that level of, management and control.
Yes.
It's just the same as any other business. And those people deserve the work just as much as anyone else. And now we're matching up two talent pools. So we've got not only the job seeker pool, which is what everyone has to use at the moment. We've now got the untapped talent pool as well, which is the underutilised staff in businesses that don't want to change jobs. And we're mashing those two together to give the biggest talent pool in the country. And that's the true power, I guess.
It's quite powerful when you think about what it could mean. Long term, as every business is on this platform, what will it mean to efficiency across staff and utilisation? Massive impact, really.
So we actually have some really good relationships with some amazing recruiters. Some get it, some don't. And we've had some recruiters sign up that have done shady things. They just get cut away from the platform straight away, and so everyone starts to behave better and do business the way that we want them to.
Keep them in line. I like it.
Yeah.
Very, very good.
I'm guessing that shady stuff is trying to keep their retainer they get for finding someone or something along the lines of that?
Most of it's all about, well, this is the way that we've always done business, so
Okay.
we're just going to do that on this platform. And
Yeah.
it's like, no,
It doesn't
you
work
know,
that
we've
way.
got checks and balances in place to make sure that you can't do that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we will find you, you know. So yeah.
There's a word of warning for you out there.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And we've got all these red flags built into the system. So the system senses when we've hit a behavioural case study where something could be going wrong.
Yep.
And then our client relations managers then investigate both sides and
Yep.
find out what's going on. So
Okay.
that's actually further increased the relationship we have with our clients. Like, 'cause they're happy to take our calls. They've got relationships with my people. They want to do the right thing because they want business to be better.
Yep.
Yep.
You know.
Very good.
Yeah. So
Love it.
It's actually working
It's a
quite
cool
well.
idea, awesome concept, and I see it making some big impacts across the next few years. But clearly, if you're in defence and owning that market, that's a huge win.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, thanks. No, this year is going to be a full-on year. I'm going to look at least 5 years older by Christmas. Much more grey hair, but we've hit that exciting phase of the startup where it's not about trying to get product market fit or trying to get that new customer. It's about, well, we've hit that. Now it's about how do I make it happen?
And it took 3.5 years for everyone out there to get to this point.
3.5 years for the overnight success.
Yeah,
in
for the
October.
overnight success. as
That's
they
exactly
say.
it, right?
Yeah.
If in 2 years' time we ended up being, acquired or something, someone would be like,
Yeah.
overnight success. And I was like,
Yeah. Almost lost my house doing this.
You didn't see me crawled up in like the fetal position on the couch going, it's not working.
That's all people see is just the day the news is announced, not what happens before. Even Lionel Messi, the soccer player, says it's an overnight success, but it took him 17 years of practice.
Yes.
That's right.
Before he got his
LinkedIn
contract.
was the same, right?
Yeah, all of them are.
They're all the
Yeah.
same. Yeah.
So, how do you see the challenges you're facing now differ to when you were starting up and trying to define your product and what the startup looked like? Because it's a different set of challenges now, and it's a different mindset you have to be in to grow from nothing to grow with something that you can work with.
And then manage that scalability, right? So
Like you were talking about earlier, you might need a dedicated project manager, someone that sees the long-term vision as well as the local or the now vision.
Right, yeah, no, I mean, okay, so in the early days, you're thinking about the original concept, right? And you're thinking at a very high level. You know, we did a very basic MVP that sort of addressed that high level, but as you evolve through and you get more engaged with your clients and you have more case studies and more use cases, and it becomes so complex. So then it's about, okay, well, what was the original concept? We got that one, that's good. Now it's about, well, how do we manage the ultimate complexity of this? And then how do we make the complex simple? And how do we make it like enjoyable for people? Like, multi-industry contracting is one of the most complex things that anyone can do because every business is different. Every business does business differently. They have different processes and different structures. And we support everything from global corporates down to startups, you know, and how do you create a platform and a process that suits everyone? And, you know, so that's what the journey that we've been going through now. And even now, with all of this sort of, you know, enterprise success we're having, each enterprise comes on and they want something just a little bit different, or
just to suit their needs.
Could you do this feature for us and everything else? So that's why my tech team want to punch me in the face, is because every day I come in and go, guys, I've sold this. By the way, you've got to just do this. And build this. And by the way, I need that in 3 weeks. And they're like, but that's 6 months worth of work. And I'm like, that's why you got shares, buddy. Crack on. Like, but yeah, so it's about execution. You know, how do I, one, make sure that I'm rolling it out the way that they want it. Two, how do I make sure that I'm keeping them retained and that I've got a good relationship with these clients? You know, and three, how do I then manage the overall, I guess, the way that the company is seen nationwide and what our reputation is and how we're messaging it. Like, I change my messaging on my website at least, you know, once every 3 months because a new way of explaining it suddenly is easier, you know, or people got it, you know, and then I'm like, oh, okay, well, now they get that, I'm going to change it. And then, you know, so we've had about probably 6 different taglines. We've had, you know, the website was focused on small business, now it's focused on enterprise. And it's what it is. I basically, it's like every week I have to stop, I have to take stock of where we're at and go, well, what is the current situation? Not what I assume it was. And then look at it bare bones and go, okay, now what's the action I need to take? to manage the complexity of the execution.
So you're basically running an agile business, not just an agile tech
It's
development process.
100% agile, and that is how our clients have, they appreciate that, and that's why they don't get upset if we have a bug or if they try to do something and it doesn't work. Instead, they ring us and go, "Hey guys, I know you're working hard, but I had this problem. Can you guys fix that?" And we fix it on spot.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the relationship you want to have with your customers.
Correct.
Right, especially at this point, until we've got a product that is so mature and we know that that's just what it's doing and we can just go out and do nothing but sell, you have to remain agile and responsive.
Yeah.
So some of the key points for whoever's listening out there, obviously Tim's a non-tech, so he's gone and built a business, but validated that clearly, and he is still validating it now.
Every day.
So it's a continuous process. It's not just about, I've got an idea and let's just build this thing, right? You started an MVP. Does that MVP exist, or is that completely gone? You've built something new again?
So I didn't have any internal tech team for the first 18 months of the business. Okay. So Blue Chili just did sort of bug fixes for me through that period. Then I hired my tech lead, and he built on top of the MVP. And then we hired our own internal tech team of developers and testers and everything, and then we completely rebuilt it.
Okay, so there is a point where you have to do that generally.
Well, and I think that's fine, right? You build something first and you test it, you break it, you sticky tape things to the side of it, just to try and make it look amazing.
Yep.
We had a Ferrari that was made of, cardboard and duct tape, But, and then at some point you go, okay, well, look at all the lessons that we've learned now over 2 years. Now it's time to sort of wipe the slate clean, put everything we know into practice, and then build again from there. So it's about moving that sort of plateau or that foundation up and going, okay, we're now at another level. Let's start again.
Yep.
And probably by the end of this year, we'll be looking then to just completely redo the whole platform again in sort of version 3.
Yeah, because it's sort of like a different vision when you're building it now for 12 months' time. By the time that 12 months happens, it's a different direction again.
And
so
again,
you built it to scale in that direction, but not in the direction you need it to go when you get there.
Right, and what do they call it? It's tech debt or something, like if we look through our code right now,
it's really sunk costs, but it's gone.
Right, it's all there, but it's just making everything a bit slower. It's, so once we can wipe that and go, okay, well, let's start from scratch and design it based on how we're using it.
Yep.
And then, like this bit of code we know that we were going to need that in 6 months' time, but we just did it as we went.
Right. Yeah. It's a bit like, it feels a bit like Frankenstein, right? Like you're just plugging everything together. Yeah. It's doing the function, but now I want to make it pretty. I want to start it again and make it a seamless, amazing experience.
And to be on version 3 in year 4, is it now, roughly?
Yeah, we're in year 4.
Year 4 is a pretty big feat in itself, so clearly there's some success in terms of revenue to be able to drive that and continuous investment coming in, so it's really good to hear how you're approaching it and how it's all going.
Yeah.
Clearly you've been flexible in your approach and been willing to ask the big questions of customers or the business model, shake it all up. How have you done that, considering you've got a whole tech platform behind you, and you're basically coming from a non-tech perspective? How do you know what it's going to take, what it's going to be, how you're going to deliver it? Are you going to be able to deliver to customers? What do you do? What's the team look like?
Yeah. So I guess as a non-tech founder, the first thing I had to do was research what the hell a tech team does. Like, what does a CTO do? What does a product manager do? What does a front end do? What's a back end? What's a full stack? And learn all that. It was really fun trying to put together the job description for my first tech. I was like, hey, I need someone who can do stuff. Anyone? And so we had to learn that as we went. So that's first and foremost, is sort of understanding that part, and then.
Did you bring them on through your own platform?
That would have been cool.
No, because I needed to recruit them. We don't do recruiting. So, that was the first step. And then the second step was I needed to develop trust in that first developer, to know that he's not going to pull the wool over my eyes, and because I had no idea what the hell he was talking about. Like, most of the time when I was sitting there and I was asking him questions like, so what's your previous experience in this or building these things? And he'd go, I built this app. And I'm like, wow. Yeah. I have no idea what that's for. I have no idea whether he did it in a day or over 6 months. I was just like, oh, that's amazing. Okay, cool. I want you to do that for me. And luckily, I have a tech lead who is, he's invested in the company. Yes. Him and I get along really, really well. Sure, he snaps at me every now and then, but I can be a bastard every now and then, you know. But yeah, no. So we started off this team with a foundation of trust, and then when we brought in others underneath them, I know that they're always working for the the betterment of the company. So when it comes to, you know, how is it to get things built and how long does it take? I mean, you sort of learn that through osmosis, but I think a non-tech founder should be taking an active role in management of what's being built. What's the priorities? How are things put together? You know, I had to learn how to use DevOps. And so I set all that up, like these are the features that I want. I break down each feature and I write the requirements for them.
So it's been more of a product owner, basically. So
just
owning the product direction.
Not just a client with a team.
Yeah.
But also the key part to understand is that when you're in that position is, I'm writing requirements because I know what the intent of what I want it to do is, and I know how the customer wants to experience it. But then knowing that I don't know everything, and taking those to the specialists in those areas and saying, are these requirements right? Have I missed the third, fourth, fifth order effects of what we're building? Because that's where the big problems will come in.
Exactly.
You know, talking to UX UI people and saying, all right, I think I've designed it like this, but I'm not a designer. You know, is that sort of how it should look? So I always ask questions, but you know, learn by doing. Get involved. You know,
you need to do that. You can't just say, here's a requirement on the back of a napkin of a product I want to build, and off you go and come back to me.
Actually, that's when my tech lead and I butted heads the most in the early days because I didn't understand the process. So I'd go down to Sydney because he lives in Sydney, I live on the Gold Coast, and I'd get a whiteboard. Okay, this is how I want the dashboard to look, and I want this button to do this and this, and I draw it all up for him, and he's taking notes. He's like, yeah, that's cool. So then I would leave there going, my tech lead, he's got this. And he's going to be building that all sorted. So I just put that out of my mind.
Wash your hands and you're good to go.
Right. And then 2 months later, I'd be like, hey, so where's that new dashboard button or whatever? And he'd go, well, you haven't given me the requirements for it. I went, I spent all day on the whiteboard. I drew it for you. And you were like, yeah, that's great. And he goes, yeah. That's a great idea once you put it into the DevOps board with requirements, with a mock-up, and you tell me how you want me to build it.
Interesting,
But I haven't built it. And I'm there going, but I'm telling people this is coming. And it's like, well, I'm not a mind reader. So we had to get to the point where I was like, okay, so I do sort of that general, this is the overview of what I want. Does everyone understand? Good. Okay, now I'm going to get you detailed requirements. And I'm going to give you a schedule. And you're going to tell me whether that schedule is
realistic or not.
Realistic.
I like it.
And in the early days too, the tech team were all yes men. You know, they were like, yeah, we can do that, we can do that, we can do that. And then, you know, we'd all fall apart. And I'm like, why did it fall apart? And they were like, well, because there was too much. And I'm like, but you said yes. Say no. You know, tell me. So we've learned and evolved over the years, and now we've got quite a good process and you know, step by step.
Very cool to hear. So unfortunately, in some circumstances, unfortunately, people don't have enough runway to do that. How have you managed that? It's been like 3.5, 4 years. Has it been revenue driven? Has it been just investors? You mentioned a little bit along the way. What does it look like?
Yeah, it's been a bit of both. Okay. We've certainly had our valleys of death. So we've probably survived through 3 valleys of death.
Okay.
And we got through those with a mixture of revenue and investment. But as you know, when you need something to show investors to get them on board.
Correct,
right?
Yeah.
So there's only so much you can sell them on. This is the vision. Particularly here in Australia, they're so risk adverse.
Yeah,
they go, what's your revenue? I'm going to put a multiplier on that, and that's your valuation.
Yeah.
You know, and when you're building a 2-sided marketplace horizontally.
Yes.
Like LinkedIn took 12 years to get to profitability, you know, and actually implement something. And we're trying to do the same thing, but we're trying to do it in an Australian investment
model. So it's all coming out of Australia, the investment?
Yeah, at the moment it's all Australian. Where they go, okay, well, what's the revenue? So I had to have that focus, obviously, on the revenue and growing that, which we were able to do. The team would rally. You know, it's almost like my team, as soon as their backs are against the wall, like they all turn into superheroes and just pull something out. You know.
Nice.
So it was a mixture of both. But in the times where revenue was low, we had the backing of a really good investment.
Yeah, very good. So how big is your team? How big is the tech team, operations? What does it look like?
We run a very, very lean team. We've got 7 people.
Yeah, nice.
And we now service over 750 clients across the country. So we've got a 4-person tech team, myself and the COO, and then we've got a director of strategy and business development.
Yeah, very cool.
And Yeah, we've even evolved our sales and everything else. Like in the early days, we were doing cold calls to small business. We've now moved away from that. Now it's all enterprise sales, so it's much more deliberate. So it's constantly looking at how do we streamline it. Do I need an additional person?
Yes.
How do we keep our costs low to maintain the best chance of giving us the time we need, but at the same time as delivering what our clients need?
Yep.
And the way that we've done that is through automation in the platform, allowing the tech to do the majority of the work for us, and then strong relationships to grow our network through.
No, very, very good. So it's not a big team, clearly, and 750 clients. What's an example? How much is actually run through the platform in terms of how many people are placed? What does it look like? I don't know if you call it placed, but put on there.
Well, over the 4 years, we've processed over $100 million worth of contracts.
Okay, well.
But if you think the story I just told you, a lot of those were speculatives in the early days.
Yes, get it.
You know, a lot of contract value, but not coming off successfully.
Understand, yeah.
So it's really been in the last probably 12 to 18 months that our organic revenues have increased, but all of our revenues were commission based.
Yes.
You know, so it was based on success. So you could have 1 month where you're killing it, and then the next month might be zero.
Yeah, I understand that.
But now that we've got our enterprise products, we've introduced a subscription model. So we now have annual recurring revenue, a monthly recurring revenue.
So that's the enterprise SaaS model.
Your cash flow then stabilizes.
So now I know that my costs are covered, and any commissions that come in, I can then reinvest into R&D and growing my team. And
so you've basically been pivoting business model, way you make money,
everything.
who your target clients are, everything. So
nothing is assumed, and if it is assumed, it's not set in stone until I've proven it. You know, and that's on our messaging, our marketing, our team, you know, our internal processes. Everything is up for review at any point.
Yeah.
No, looks like the only thing you've kept is the business name.
Exactly. The business name is the only thing, and the original concept. But even then, that original concept has evolved.
Yeah,
you know,
clearly.
So
You're solving the same problem, but evolved it into a different space.
Yeah.
A different way of delivering it too, from enterprise level, new
At another
products,
level.
new everything. Yeah.
Well, and what's hard is, like, you start this off with a passion, and my passion was to solve employee underutilisation, which is really important for the small to medium business sector. But enterprises, they don't care.
No, that's not their problem, is
They've
it?
got deep pockets.
Yeah.
If they can have 1,000 people on the bench and they just go, okay, well, go out and earn more money. You know, like, that's it. So even though my passion is still to solve underutilisation and give people job stability, I'm now selling products to a client that those products will eventually solve that, but it's not a selling point. So I now need to almost wipe that from my marketing and say, okay, I've got a new way to target enterprise, and I will achieve my social impact as it
Down the line.
evolves down. You know,
Get it.
and that was hard because I was so invested in that story of saving jobs and saving businesses, and that was my pitch. And then to just wipe all of that away and just go to some sort of an enterprise sale, it took a lot. I fought it a lot until my board sort of went, Tim, your customer has changed.
Yes.
Your messaging has to change.
Everything has to change.
Let it go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if it's not working, it's not working, and you can either fight that battle up that hill that's never ending, or you can choose to retreat, take another path. And I think, clearly you've made the right move there, and you might be able to fight that battle down the line in terms of how you approach it.
Yeah. But you certainly need to be comfortable with change. You know?
Yeah.
You can't run a tech startup without being comfortable with change, because it'll change daily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, going back 3.5 years, if you walked up to Tim, had a beer with him, what would you say to Tim to be ready on this journey and what to expect? What were some of the things you'd give, some advice to maybe smoothen out that process a little bit for Tim?
I would love to explain, like, okay, this is our position now, 4 years later, and this is why we went to that point.
Yes.
But I reckon, 3.5-year-old, Tim would have just gone, maybe you don't know what you're talking about. I know what's happening, because I was so sure on it. I was arrogant.
Yep.
So I guess the only I don't actually know what all it is just stick with it. It's gonna get where you need to go. You just need to stick it out and be open minded.
I think it's the things you've learned are because you've gone through
the process.
Things.
Right.
If you don't go through them, you're not going to understand them.
That's exactly right.
I'll tell that when people have kids. So people were telling me all this advice before my first kid was born. Yeah, all right, whatever.
You
Kid's
go, yeah,
born.
but that won't be my kid.
Oh, the kid's born, but it's completely different. But you don't understand half of what they're talking about,
No,
even if they're trying to
there's
explain
no
it to you.
context there,
Because you don't.
there's-
Yeah,
yeah.
the context isn't there of having one.
Right. And I still remember I was told by one of the guys at Blue Chili, they were like, mate, you know, this is going to take years for you to build and get there and everything else.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking in my head, I was like, yeah, but that's not me.
Yeah, okay.
This is a better idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to smash it. And
Yeah.
within a year, we're going to be huge and we're going to be sold. You know,
Yes.
like that's what's going to happen. 4 years later, I'm like, God damn it. Like,
He was right.
well, yeah, he was right. And I think everyone does that. Everyone goes, that's not going to happen to me.
Yeah.
But it happens.
Yeah. So
Until you go
that's
through
probably
your
the advice
story.
you give Tim back
Yeah.
then. Just, be
Yeah.
humble.
Listen to everyone
listen.
because they're giving you good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until you go through your story and face those things yourself and overcome them, then it's always hard to understand and put yourself in someone else's shoes.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Experience is everything. Yeah. Reading a book and learning about it is not the same thing as experience.
No.
Never is, never will be.
Yeah. No, that's right.
You've spoken a little bit about your advisory board. What does that look like? Because from my perspective, every founder needs to build credible teams around them and just advisory teams around them. What does it look like for you?
Yeah, so around Pat, who's our chairman, I built a team of people that I really respected in either in my business life
Yes.
or through I met. So, and each one of them I brought on for a very specific advisory reason.
Okay.
You know, so Pat is our chairman because he has a wealth of experience at the CEO, COO, CFO level, ASX boards. You know, he knows industry. Following him up, we've got Jim Bancroft, who was the ex-vice president of Northrop Grumman. He is our defence advisor.
Yes.
You know, he's very well connected. He understands how defence industry works, and that's our primary industry. So
Yes.
he does that.
It's a large company he came from too.
Yeah.
I don't know
So-
much about them, but I've heard of them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So his advice is always invaluable. We've got Monica Bradley, who is she is our investment, startup, sales, and BD advisor. You know, she's one of the most well-connected women in Queensland innovation sector.
Okay.
And she is my voice of she pulls no punches. And she won't accept me just sort of washing over something. She'll go, no, explain that, you know. And she's that person who will hold me accountable for what I'm saying, which is really important.
Yep.
And then finally, I've got Michael Page, who is my tech advisor. He ran a very successful company, which he sold to Telstra. And he's just one of those people that he saw the vision, he saw the potential, and he just was like, look, whatever I can do to help. And so he's been my sounding board against the tech team. So if I don't agree with what the tech team are doing, I go to him and say, is this right? You know, should this be the way the process happens?
There's always need a second person. It doesn't matter what it is, how good your team is. It's good to get a third party.
Yeah.
And an advisory. And now, the reason why I asked that question is that it's really, really good to see that you've got people across a whole business gamut. So you've got the tech side, you've got some sales BD side, you've got an industry advisor in the specific defence space that you're trying to really push into.
Yeah.
Now you own most of it, and Pat's pretty got a gamut of everything, right? So
Right.
you've got a clear picture. Your advisory team is made up of what your business needs, and I think sometimes non-techs can have a technology idea and think about it's all about the tech, but in the end, you're still a business. You still need to operate like one, and there's so much beyond what technology is. So just picking a tech guy to come on board or partner with and build this thing is not generally the way you want to approach it.
Right.
Get other people that can help evolve the business itself, because in the end, it needs to be a model that generates revenue. That's why you're in it as well.
Yeah, 100%. And that's our board of directors. And then outside of that, I've got specialist advisors that I've developed relationships with in very specific fields that I can go to when I have questions.
Yep.
But the majority of the time, my board is got most of it covered.
Yeah. And it's good that you've got a group of people that are there to advise you, not pat you on the back.
Right,
Yes.
right. And I said that to them at the start. I was like, I don't want you to just sort of be a yes board and just, oh yeah, whatever you think, you know, good job. I don't need that. I need someone to tear apart what I'm saying and go, I think this is the right decision.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah, you need that sounding board and verification from them, not just agreeing with you and saying, All right, yeah, whatever your idea, you run with it.
Yeah,
I don't
if
know.
you find a yes man as an advisor, you just drop them. You know,
I don't
like
know.
that.
Yeah, I don't know where I heard it, but I think it's something along. If you got two co-founders that always agree, or two people that always agree, you can get rid of one and you're fine.
Right,
so
right.
you don't need that person. You want someone that's going to challenge you.
Well,
or challenge your thinking, right?
That's exactly
Yeah.
how Katie and I operate. So Katie's my wife. She's actually the co-founder and COO of the company.
Mm-hmm.
We, in terms of our experience, we are yin and yang. You
Yes.
know, I was more of the BD sales, strategic level.
Mm-hmm.
Katie's been running the back end of businesses like her whole life. So
Okay.
she's in the accounting, admin, ops space.
Yes.
We have complete opposite personalities. We have complete opposite backgrounds, and we will go head to head
Generally, what happens
on everything. You know, my board loves watching the presentations, and they just the back and forward, and they're like, "You guys are fine. You're keeping each other in check." Yeah,
I think Anthony and I have the exact same relationship in here.
Yeah.
We challenge each other every day. Our thinking's very different, but I
Very,
think you
very
need
different.
that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no point to working with someone and collaborating. And that being your wife, generally, you do have conflicting thinking and thoughts. So yeah, really, very cool. How do you work in that relationship? How does that?
Oh,
Look?
that took some work.
Yeah.
The one thing I miss the most is not coming home and saying, "Hey, honey, how was your day?" I know how your day was. You were sitting next to me the whole day, and you annoyed me the whole day. I don't want to talk to you anymore. And actually, we set very clear boundaries in the business. So I'm the only legal director of the business. She's not. So therefore, when it comes down to we have a stalemate, I'm the one who's going to go to jail if things go wrong. So therefore,
you have the final.
I get the final say. And she actually set that up herself because she didn't want a position where we've both got that equal stake, and we just can't come to a decision. So that was the first step. The second one was we had to develop like a hat system. So I'm now talking to you as the CEO of the company.
Yes.
And I'm going to take that hat off and I'm going to put on my husband hat.
Okay.
And I'm going to say something to you. And then I'm going to put my CEO hat back on. Which works sometimes, but it doesn't. So to be like, she'd be like, okay, I've got my COO hat on. Yes, I hear what you're saying and I'll implement that. I'm now putting on my wife hat. Screw you and get out of my office, and then I'll be like, what? She'll go, no, CIO's hat's back on, you can't be mad at me anymore.
Clever way of using it.
Yeah. So we get there just using those sorts of things, but it's a lot of communication. It's a lot of sometimes having to suck, or drop your ego.
Yes.
And just communicate it through.
Yeah.
But I think it's strengthened our relationship. We communicate better than we ever have, and...
Oh, you learn to evolve, especially working with someone day in, day out. You learn more about them than you would be if you're just a marriage relationship.
Right.
So you're at work more than generally you're at home.
Normally you'd spend more time with your colleagues than your wife.
Exactly.
So you brought it together.
Especially when you're raising kids. I know you got 2 kids, right?
We got 2 kids,
So 2 kids, and you work from home, correct?
So we work mostly from home on the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
So my tech team are based in Sydney. Alison, our BD manager, she's in Canberra.
Yes.
And then Katie and I on the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
So we just didn't need the idea of setting up an office and putting bloody bright lights up there when it's just the 2 of us. We just work from home.
It's a pretty amazing story. Husband, wife, working from home, operating a business, 2 kids, and then growing this business now. And imagine some pretty big growth in the next few years in terms of where your direction is. So, pretty cool to hear your story, Tim. In terms of where we're sort of at, thanks for sharing. Really appreciate you coming in and sharing some insights about what it really takes to start up a business, especially when you're non-tech. Last thing I'll lead you on is I told you when to take some advice back to Tim. Now, some of the key points I want to talk about from non-techs is basically, if you're a non-tech, got an idea, where's the first place they should be starting in your opinion? What should you be looking at? What should you be doing? You mentioned a lot about validating idea through this conversation, working with clients intensively. Would you go there or would you take them somewhere else?
So the first thing I always say to young entrepreneurs is don't just look for the solution. Really understand a problem.
Yep.
And you will organically come up with a good idea that you understand. Because if you understand the problem, then you will make the right solution.
Yes.
So that's the first step. But I actually had a number of business ideas through my military career, and each one of them I learned a lesson. And the first one was because in the military we move around every 2 years. We had cats. We couldn't have a cat door because we were always in a rental. So I designed to the screen doors.
Yeah.
I designed like an attachment onto the screen door,
Yep.
so you could take it with you, and it always had a cat flap.
Oh, so you just basically
So you just
kept
plug
the
it in.
screen door half open and
Yeah.
then filled it in
keep
with
that.
glass and a door. Yeah,
Right,
all right, cool.
right. So
Yep.
I was thinking, this is perfect. Like,
Yes.
boom, light bulb.
Yep.
And so I went away and I then designed
Yes.
it. I was almost at the point of going and buying the resources to develop a prototype.
Yes.
And then I went, I'm just going to just search Google. And there was an Australian company
Yeah.
that was based in the same city as I was
Yes.
that had been doing this for 5 years.
Well, do your research.
with
is another
with the
point.
exact product, you
Yeah.
know, and I was
do your
like,
research first.
I just wasted like a month of my time
But you
because I
didn't
didn't
waste,
do
you
my
learned.
market research.
But what did you learn from that?
Yeah, the
Market
very
research.
first thing you
Yeah.
do when you have an idea is you do market
Yes.
research to see is anybody else doing
Yeah.
this.
And
You
if
know,
they are,
I thought you were going to say the problem was you set up a prototype and you walk through and the door was too small for you to
yeah. Well, I'm a short guy, so it could have been a door for me. Yeah, but that was heartbreaking. But at the same time, it was like just sort of slap on the forehead, like,
Yeah.
how stupid can you be?
Yeah.
Like, you're not even checking if anyone's doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the first thing you need to do, market research. And then once you've got that, the next step is to go and talk to someone. So that's Blue Chili always said, like, after every step you went through, it was like, now get out of the office and go talk to your customers.
And validate it.
And validate.
Yeah.
So you do your market research, and then you just go and invite someone for a coffee and say, hey, I've got an idea, I just want to run it by you. Do you think this would work? You know, and the information that you get out of them is
It's gold, right?
huge.
Yeah, because they're in the space, they're in the industry, they're probably your target market, or clearly they would be if you're talking to them, and they've got the background knowledge to fill in the gap that you don't know about, right?
Right, and
Yeah.
most people are very willing to help, very willing to have the conversation. Like I'm amazed at how much people will
Yeah.
do. So they're the first two things, 100%. You know, research, validate.
Research, validate, and know what problem you're solving was one of the key points you said
Yeah,
there too.
100%.
Yeah.
And you see it all the time. Like I see a lot of university students that I've been mentoring that they're in university, they love the startup scene. They go, I want to be a startup founder, and I go,
Yes.
okay, what do you want to do? And they go, oh, well, I'm thinking like a coffee app where you can order it. And I'm like, mate, it's all been done. You know,
Yeah.
like stop looking for
Yeah.
something easy
Yes.
and solve a problem.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
And I think we'll leave it on that, Tim. I think.
Yeah, thanks.
Solve a real
Before
problem.
we go, just let everyone know where they can reach out to you
Yeah,
and find more
definitely.
information.
Yeah.
Sure. So we're at BenchOn.com
Yep.
is our website, and you can sign up for free from there. But I'd be more than happy if anyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn. That's
Yeah.
my main platform
Yes.
because we're business to business.
Yes.
So
Yes.
connect with me on LinkedIn and follow the journey.
It's been a pleasure, Tim. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks,
Really
Tim.
appreciate you dropping in when you're in Melbourne, just on a trip to see some customers, come out and share a podcast to the startup community. Thanks,
No,
Tim.
thanks very much for having me. It was
Thanks,
fun.
mate. Thank you.
Cheers.
No worries.